The chamber was vast, carved from shining white marble that reflected the glow of the holographic display suspended in the air. Hundreds of alien eyes, compound and slitted and multifaceted, fixed on the impossible image rotating above the table. 300 ships. Steel-gray hulls, sharp-edged and unadorned, every line designed with purpose, every angle radiating lethal intent. They hung in formation at the edge of Concord space, their silence louder than any threat. The Veylock ambassador's voice was a low hiss that carried across the chamber. "Tell me this is a deception. Tell me these are not human-built." No one answered. The Concord's most ancient races, species who had once thought themselves predators of the stars, sat in tense silence. The human ambassador broke it. Elias Dane rose with unhurried grace, adjusting the jacket of his tailored suit. He was clean-cut, broad-shouldered, and wore that disarming smile humans seemed to think harmless. To the gathered powers of the galaxy, it looked like the grin of a beast confident in its fangs. "My friends," Dane began, his tone light, almost apologetic. "We seem to have caused a stir. Rest assured, Earth has no intention of appearing aggressive. But space around our planet is, well, congested. We needed room to maneuver. Perhaps it looks more alarming than intended." Alarming was an understatement. The insectoid Threx representative leaned forward, mandibles clicking in disbelief. 300 battleships. Not transports, not explorers. Battleships. What kind of traffic requires fleets of war? Dane's expression brightened with mock innocence. "Oh, you noticed the armament? Sharp eyes. Truth be told, it was cheaper to produce them all in the same class. Bulk construction saves quite a bit. You'd be amazed how the numbers work out." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. No species here had ever spoken of battleships in the same tone one might use for bargain shopping. The Drav warlord snarled, voice like gravel dragged across steel. "This is no defense project. This is expansion. Conquest." Dane tilted his head as though considering the accusation. "Conquest? Heavens. No. These are prototypes. The actual fleet isn't even finished yet." Gasps, clicks, and growls filled the air. Someone dropped a data pad. The temperature of the room seemed to drop by degrees. They adjourned in chaos. Behind sealed doors, the council erupted. "They must be stopped before they destabilize the balance," the Veylock hissed. "We cannot allow such unchecked militarization." "Perhaps," countered the Threx, voice high and frantic, "it would be wiser to bring them in. Make them allies. Better to share a table with a predator than end up on its plate." The Drav scoffed, claws raking deep grooves into the table. "They are primitives. Barely a millennium into spaceflight. They should be managed, not elevated. This display is a bluff." But no one could explain how the primitive species had manufactured what rivaled the fleets of empires older than Earth's recorded history. Industrial restrictions had failed to notice it. No signs of slave labor, no reports of collapsed economies. And yet, the Terrans had conjured steel and fire from nowhere. The next day Dane returned to the chamber as though nothing had happened. He smiled, poured himself a glass of plain water, and spoke with infuriating calm. "I understand your concerns. But humans have an old saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst." The hologram shifted. The ships moved into a new formation, precise, layered, a web of steel that even the most hardened generals recognized immediately as a killing field. Not a demonstration of pride. A warning. The Threx speaker rasped, "Why show us this? What game is this?" Dane's tone was silk. "Oh, no game. It seemed only polite, you know what to expect." The silence was suffocating. That night, intelligence networks worked at full capacity. Concord operatives infiltrated human data streams, expecting hidden programs, secret vaults, encrypted war orders. Instead, they found government debates streamed live, journalists tearing apart military spending, public records of shipyard expansions. The humans weren't concealing their buildup. They were broadcasting it to anyone with an antenna. A Veylock analyst stared at the report in dread. They want us to see every move, every number. This isn't secrecy. This is intimidation by transparency. Back in his embassy, Dane reviewed the intercepted reports as though checking the weather. His smile deepened. He knew exactly what conclusions the others were drawing. At the next session, the Ja'Carri warlord finally broke. The reptilian giant leaned forward, talons scraping the surface of the table. Enough riddles, human. Tell us plainly. What do you want? Dane folded his hands, voice measured and calm. Peace. The chamber erupted in snarls and laughter. Peace. From the mouth of the species with 300 warships parked on the border. The Ja'Carri slammed his fist down, the impact cracking stone. No species builds this for peace. Dane leaned forward, the smile never faltering but his eyes sharpening to something colder. That's where you misunderstand. To humans, peace is not the absence of war. He paused, letting the silence sharpen. Peace is when everyone else is too afraid to start one. The words dropped like lead. No one moved. No one breathed. Then the alarms began to wail. The hologram shifted from controlled fleet display to urgent live feed. Ships were dropping out of FTL at the Concord border. Dozens, maybe hundreds, their profiles unfamiliar, their intent clear. They weren't human. The chamber turned as one to look at Dane. His expression was unreadable. To some it looked like calm. To others, like satisfaction. And the single thought ran through every alien mind, chilling them more than the invasion on the screen. Had the humans known this would happen? Dane smoothed his jacket, his smile returning in full. Ah, he murmured almost pleasantly. Right on time. The alarm screamed through the chamber, scarlet light flashing across carved stone walls as the holographic display filled with alien ships dropping from FTL. Their silhouettes were jagged, irregular, unlike any Concord design. Hulls bristled with unknown weaponry, their drives burning an unnatural blue. The sudden intrusion cracked the chamber's careful mask of diplomacy. Voices rose in overlapping terror. Unknown signatures, hissed the Threx speaker, antennae quivering. Not Concord. Not mapped. The Drav warlord rose, scales catching the red light, voice a low growl. Pirates do not arrive in hundreds. This is an invasion. Every alien turned toward Dane. He stood calmly as the chaos built, one hand in his pocket, the other resting lightly on the table as if he were waiting for a meal to be served. His voice cut through the noise without effort. You'll want to stabilize your border patrols immediately. That fleet didn't arrive by accident. They've scouted this space for months. The Veylock ambassador's throat expanded in alarm. You knew. Dane smiled faintly. We pay attention. It helps. On the holo display, the new arrivals spread into a crescent, engines aligning, weapons charging. The Concord delegates muttered calculations of tonnage and firepower, each estimation growing worse. They weren't pirates. They weren't opportunists. Whoever they were, they had come ready for war. The Ja'Carri slammed a clawed fist against the table. Concord defenses are scattered. We'll need days to mobilize. This fleet could burn 3 worlds before reinforcements arrive. And that, Dane said pleasantly, is why Earth prepared. The words froze the room. Every gaze fixed on him. The Threx speaker hissed, voice brittle with panic. Prepared how? Your prototypes? Is this another show? Dane's hand flicked across the control panel built into the table. The hologram shifted. The projection of 300 human warships stirred, drives igniting, formations sliding like blades being drawn from a sheath. They were already moving, vectoring toward the intruders with terrifying precision. The Drav bared his teeth. "You unleashed them without approval." "Unleashed?" Dane echoed softly. "No. We released them. That's what fleets are for." The alien council fell silent, transfixed by the image. The human armada moved with unity no one had expected, no hesitation, no scattered adjustments, just one coherent strike. The formation curved in 3 layers, cutting across possible retreat paths, boxing the intruders into a narrowing field. "Impossible," whispered the Veloc. "No species new to the stars maneuvers like this." Dane lifted his glass of water, taking a slow sip. "Drills. Endless drills. You'd be surprised how much discipline a little practice creates." The first exchange crackled through the hologram. The unknown fleet opened fire in a blaze of plasma, brilliant arcs of energy filling the void. Human ships didn't scatter. They absorbed the storm, layered shielding flaring, then answered in unison. Railgun rounds streaked across the black, followed by precision missile swarms that moved like living things. Entire enemy cruisers vanished in sheets of white fire. The aliens around the table recoiled. "Those aren't defensive strikes," the Jar-Carry snarled. "Of course not," Dane said with perfect politeness. "When attacked, one responds decisively. Peace, after all, demands certainty." The Concord delegates shifted uneasily. The truth was undeniable. Without the human fleet, the border would already be burning. Yet the sight of Terran power unleashed chilled them as much as it reassured. Minutes passed, the hologram painting the chamber in violent light. Enemy ships fell in rapid succession, crushed under coordinated volleys. A single human dreadnought pivoted, guns hammering like thunder, erasing a battle line with ruthless efficiency. The intruders attempted to retreat, drives flaring hard, but the Terran net tightened. There was no escape. The Veloc ambassador's voice trembled. "They anticipated this. They set the trap before we even realized the danger." The Threx's wings twitched. Then the humans knew these raiders would come. They let them strike here, at our border. Dane lowered his glass and placed it gently on the table. "We didn't let them. We tracked them. We warned your monitoring networks months ago. You dismissed the data as paranoia." His gaze flicked across the room, polite, unblinking. "Humans do not forget when our warnings are ignored." The accusation landed with surgical force. No one could deny the Concord's bureaucracy moved slowly, obsessed with consensus. They had laughed at human urgency. And now, the only reason the council chamber still existed was that Earth had refused to wait. The battle reached its end. The enemy fleet shattered, survivors scattering in burning fragments. The human formation didn't pursue needlessly. They crushed what resisted, then held position, engines steady, weapons hot. The message was unmistakable. Victory hadn't been won by chance. It had been engineered. The chamber smelled of fear. Even species with no sense of smell felt it. Finally, the Jar-Carry leaned forward, scales glistening in the dying red light. "Why?" His voice was low, edged with both fury and awe. "Why show us this? You could have hidden your strength, struck unseen, and claimed the glory alone. Instead, you parade it before us." Dane straightened his jacket and answered with the same soft civility he'd carried from the beginning. "Because peace doesn't come from shadows. It comes from certainty. You've seen what we can do. Now you know what it would cost to test us. Knowledge, my friends, is the greatest deterrent of all." The words settled over the council like a shroud. Some species bristled at the arrogance. Others sat in stunned silence, realizing the calculus had shifted overnight. Humanity was no longer the curious frontier race with strange habits and too much energy. Humanity was the power that had saved the border, and terrified every witness in the process. The Drav warlord finally snarled, though it sounded hollow. You think this makes you our saviors? You think fear is loyalty? This display earns you no throne. Dane's smile was faint, polite, unreadable. A throne? No. Earth doesn't seek one. But we do require respect. His gaze swept the chamber, steady, unflinching. Earned or imposed. The method hardly matters. Before anyone could respond, the hologram flickered again. New signatures appeared on its edge. Smaller, faster, war bands breaking away from some distant staging ground. Not the same fleet, but connected. Scouts. Reinforcements. The aliens gasped. The Concorde could not endure wave after wave of incursions. Their defenses were stretched thin, their worlds vulnerable. But the humans, those unsettling newcomers, were already shifting their fleets, positioning with chilling foresight. Dane didn't look surprised. In fact, his voice carried the quiet satisfaction of someone watching a plan unfold exactly as expected. "Ah," he said gently, "and now the real game begins." The chamber hadn't calmed. If anything, the second wave on the holo display shattered what remained of order. The alien voices overlapped again, shouting accusations, panic, demands for immediate action. The Threk speaker's antennae lashed the air, mandibles clattering in alarm. Another fleet, more coordinated than the first. This is no raid. It is invasion doctrine. The Drav warlord's claws gouged the table as he leaned forward. Our border forces are scattered, unprepared. By the time we consolidate, entire sectors will burn. The Veloc hissed, tail coiling tight. This is why they built it. The humans planned for this. All eyes turned once more to Dane. He remained seated this time, perfectly still, as though the storm around him had no weight. The glass of water sat untouched by his hand. His smile didn't waver. "The Concorde prides itself on consensus," Dane said softly. "But consensus delays action. While you were debating, the threat built in silence. Earth has no patience for being devoured while committees deliberate. So we prepared alone." The Jarkari warlord's voice rumbled deep in his chest. "You speak as if you expected them." Dane lifted a single brow. "Expected? Anticipated. Patterns leave trails. Attacks don't bloom from nowhere." He tapped the table once, and the hologram shifted. It replayed fragments of intercepted transmissions, movement of radar craft months ago, faint but visible to anyone who bothered to look. "We followed the crumbs. It was obvious enough. Obvious to us, at least." A suffocating silence followed. The evidence was undeniable. The Concorde had missed it. The humans had not. On the display, the new wave of ships spread into formation, sleeker than the first, faster, their numbers building in alarming density. They didn't charge blindly. They probed the edges, testing human lines, firing in sudden concentrated bursts. Dane studied them with the interest of a man reading a book he'd already skimmed. The first human squadrons intercepted with practiced precision. Railguns lit the void. Missile clouds burst apart into swarms, weaving between enemy salvos, striking engines and weapons first. Where other fleets faltered under surprise, the Terrans adapted instantly, ships folding into layered grids that flexed and closed like jaws. The Veloc whispered what many already thought. They fight as though they've rehearsed this exact battle. Dane finally sipped his water. We don't rehearse once. We rehearse until it's instinct. Humans have a peculiar faith in muscle memory. Even fleets can learn it. The alien delegates didn't speak. Their attention was locked on the growing storm. Every second showed the impossible. A young species holding the line where ancient empires would have faltered. And worse, holding it with eerie calm, as though none of this came as a surprise. The Jarkari leaned forward, his voice sharp with suspicion. "Tell me, human, how long have you known?" "A year. 10. How long have you prepared for this?" Dane's smile was faint but sharp. Long enough to know when the wolves start circling, you don't wait for the bite. You bare your teeth. The second fleet pressed harder. Battles flared across the hologram, enemy formations trying to slip around human lines, only to be cut apart. A human destroyer burned, breaking into fragments, but its sacrifice sealed the gap, missiles carving a corridor that annihilated the raiders who tried to slip through. The council chamber reeked of fear. But under the fear was something more dangerous. The growing realization that humanity had stepped beyond curiosity, beyond novelty. They weren't guests in the galaxy anymore. They were predators shaping the hunt. The Threk speaker broke the silence, voice sharp with something close to panic. If they had not come, would you still have revealed your fleet? Would you still have unveiled this trap? Dane's gaze flicked toward the insectoid, his tone maddeningly calm. What trap? It wasn't denial. It was mischief. The kind of answer that twisted in the gut, because it meant everything might have been orchestrated. The Drav warlord slammed a claw down, voice rising. If you lured them here, if this bloodshed is of your making, then you've endangered the Concord for your own theater. Dane met his fury with a level stare. Endangered? Without us, you'd already be cinders. Don't confuse rescue with risk. The chamber froze. The arrogance was unbearable, but it was also undeniable. The proof was still burning across the projection, alien ships dying under human fire. The second wave began to crumble. Enemy formations splintered under relentless pressure, engines failing, ships shattering one after another. Human squadrons pressed forward with surgical brutality. What was left of the invaders scattered, retreating into the void. But victory brought no relief. The hologram expanded again, and the feeds widened. On the edge of the field, more signals flickered to life. Dozens, then hundreds. This wasn't an attack. This was an invasion on a scale that would drown systems. The Threks whispered, "How many waves?" The Veilok hissed, voice low, filled with dread. "Until the Concord is exhausted. Until they've bled us dry." The alien council shifted from panic to despair. They knew their fleets were scattered, their logistics fragile. They could not survive an endless tide. Only Dane looked untroubled. His smile remained, calm and sharp. He tapped the table again, the hologram shifting to show human reinforcements already in motion. More fleets sliding from Earth's yards, more convoys pushing supplies toward the front. Every line, every movement, positioned days in advance. The Jakari's eyes narrowed. You were waiting for this. All of it. The fleets, the supplies, the positioning. You knew. Dane didn't deny it. He adjusted his cufflinks as though the conversation bored him. We plan for the worst, warlord. When you grow up on a world where storms flatten cities and predators stalk the dark, you learn early. You don't hope the night passes quietly. You sharpen the spear and keep watch. The Veilok's voice cracked, half awe, half fear. You let us believe you built this fleet from paranoia, from ambition. But all along, you were preparing for this. Dane's smile widened by the faintest degree. Would you have believed us otherwise? The chamber went silent. The hologram filled with fire. More fleets collided. The Concord delegates stared, torn between gratitude and terror. Humanity had positioned itself as savior and threat both, rescuer and executioner, all in the same movement. The warlord's voice broke the silence, heavy with suspicion. If you win this war, human, what then? What place will the rest of us hold when Earth commands fleets larger than empires? Dane's eyes gleamed with something colder than humor, sharper than threat. He lifted his glass once more, water gleaming red under the alarms, and spoke softly. That, he said, depends on how polite you are when we offer peace. And before anyone could reply, the hologram pulsed again. New data. The enemy's third wave wasn't charging the border. It was bypassing. slipping deeper, angling toward populated. The chamber felt smaller now, though its vaulted ceiling loomed high above. The delegates clustered around the hollow projection as if proximity could change the images playing out before them. The third wave had not met the Terran fleet at the border. It had slipped past, angling toward worlds deep in Concord territory, civilian hubs, industrial nexuses, colonies with no standing fleets. The alarms painted the chamber in red, but no light was more damning than the cold glow of helplessness across the faces of the galaxy's supposed powers. "They're bypassing the fight," the Threx speaker rasped, mandibles chattering. "They don't care about the border. They mean to burn our worlds from the inside." The Drav warlord's claws dug furrows into the marble table. "Our ships are scattered. By the time we mobilize, millions will be ash." The Veloc ambassador hissed, eyes narrowing at Dane. "This is what you wanted. To show us dependent. To make us beg for your fleet." Dane remained seated, calm as ever. His fingers tapped once against the rim of his glass, the smallest acknowledgement of the tension coiling in the chamber. His voice, when he spoke, was level, almost conversational. "You mistake necessity for theater. We didn't bring the fire. We brought the extinguisher." The Jarkari warlord leaned forward, eyes burning. "Then prove it. Those worlds are not yours. If you mean peace, defend them." The room fell silent. Every eye was fixed on Dane, waiting for the mask to slip. Instead, he smiled faintly, as though the demand amused him. "We already are." The hologram shifted again. From deep space, concealed fleets flickered into view, ships that had not been displayed before, ships none of the delegates had known existed. They had been waiting in silence beyond sensor range, dormant, cloaked in debris fields, masked by civilian traffic. Now they lit their drives and accelerated, perfectly positioned to intercept the bypassing raiders. Gasps rattled the chamber. The Concord had not realized. The humans had hidden entire battle groups in plain sight. "You staged this," the Threx speaker whispered. "Every movement. Every reveal. Even this moment." Dane turned his head slightly, his expression polite, inscrutable. "We staged nothing. We anticipated. That's what survival demands. You don't wait to see if the fire spreads. You dig firebreaks long before it arrives." The hidden fleet struck like jaws snapping shut. Enemy squadrons, so certain of their clever bypass, found themselves caught between hammer and anvil. Human missiles painted the void in threads of fire, railguns tore through shields, and electronic warfare scrambled command relays until their formations collapsed. Within minutes, what had seemed a mortal threat dissolved into wreckage. The Concord delegates stared, transfixed. Fear warred with awe. Humanity had not merely responded to an attack, they had orchestrated the defense of worlds that weren't even theirs. Yet the precision of it all, the layers of foresight, made the room colder with every passing heartbeat. The Veloc broke the silence, voice taut with suspicion. "You prepared this long before. You knew the scale. You let us stumble blind while you sharpened the blade." Dane's smile never faltered. "We offered warnings. You dismissed them. We could have stood aside and watched you burn, but instead we moved. Forgive us for not filing the proper paperwork first." The jab struck deep. Even the Jarkari warlord looked away, jaw clenched. The Concord prided itself on procedure, on consensus, on slow but steady action. That same pride had blinded them. Humanity had built in silence, and now that silence roared across the stars. The hologram shifted again, showing the wreckage of the third wave drifting, fires guttering into the void. The Terran fleets pulled back into formation, disciplined, unbroken. They had not only won, they had done so without revealing the full extent of their arsenal. Every alien in the room knew it. The Threx whispered, "If this is what they show us, what don't they show?" Dane rose at last, smooth and deliberate. He buttoned his jacket, every motion calm, and let his gaze sweep the council. His voice carried no volume yet filled the chamber all the same. Ladies and gentlemen, the threat will not end tonight. Waves will keep coming until the source is burned out. Earth will not wait for the Concord to debate whether survival is convenient. We will end this at its root. The Drov warlord's eyes narrowed. You mean to strike into their space? Alone? Dane inclined his head. Not alone. Any who value survival are welcome to stand with us. But with or without you, humanity marches. The bluntness stunned them. Empires thousands of years old were used to careful negotiation, to veiled suggestions, to a dance of words. This was no dance. It was a line in stone. The Jarkari leaned forward, claws flexing, voice heavy with both fury and reluctant respect. You've trapped us. If we refuse, we look weak. If we agree, we fight under your command. Dane's smile softened, but his eyes stayed sharp. Not trapped. Offered. You've seen what unpreparedness costs. Join us and live. Refuse and, well, Earth will fight either way. The choice hung like a blade above the council. None spoke, because every one of them knew it was no choice at all. Humanity had maneuvered them as surely as they had maneuvered their fleets. On the hologram, human ships formed into new vectors, drives flaring, preparing to push beyond the border. The galaxy's old powers watched, realizing they were no longer arbiters of the stars. They were witnesses. The Threx's mandibles clicked once, softly. What if you win? What becomes of the Concord then? Dane's answer came without pause. His voice was soft, almost kind. Then the galaxy will finally understand what peace means to humanity. The words lingered, heavier than threats. The hologram flashed again, showing deeper scans of space. Massive enemy fleets clustered around hidden strongholds, more vast than any had guessed. The war ahead would be brutal, bloody, and long. But as the image sharpened, so did the realization that humanity had already mapped it, already prepared. Dane set down his glass, untouched now, and gave the council one final smile. Not mocking, not triumphant. Simply inevitable. Now, he said, shall we begin?